right, welcome back to another episode of TimeOut with the SportsDr podcast. Hey, glad to have you back for another week. And I have another very exciting guest for you, Dr. Victor Kidd. Dr. Kidd is a sports mental health consultant. He's actually a consultant for the NBA. He's a psychotherapist, and he is the CEO and founder of Kidd Wellness Solutions and Consulting, LLC. And we'll talk about that all shortly. Hey, but welcome to the podcast. Are you interested in real estate? Are you tired of hearing about all the money that your friends and colleagues are making from their investments, but you don't know where to start? Don't worry, I got you. We are teaming up with Dr. Ronnie, Shalev, and Shalwin Properties to equip you with the tools you need to feel empowered about your investments. So how do you get involved? Do these three things. First, go to my website at Dr.Derrick, thesportsdr.com, and click on the sponsor link for Shalwin Properties. This will give you access to a free webinar, as well as the ability to have a discovery call with Dr. Ronnie Shalev. Also follow her on social media and stay tuned for more helpful tips coming at you on Money Mondays. Now, back to the episode.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I'm glad to be here and glad to be able to be recorded and have things going, so people can always revisit it and hear some good words.
Absolutely. So I want to give you a shout out, number one, because I mentioned when I met you, but, being an orthopedic surgeon, I go to a lot of medical conferences, and we talk about mental health in the hospital. We talk about mental health all over, but the panel that you hosted was, to me, the most real discussion around mental health that I've heard, especially coming from a group of Black men. So, salute you for that. And it was a very, especially talking to athletes and talking to young Black men about mental health. I thought that was awesome.
Right. Sweet. Yeah, man. It was a good opportunity. I mean, I spent a lot of time moderating as an academic. So I remember an attendee at a conference, she walked up to me, she said, "You did a really good job moderating." She was like, "How did you kind of like tie everybody in?" And I said, "Well, two things an academic knows how to do is present research and moderate a panel." So, and it's natural, I just have a natural, gift of gab, I guess you can say. So that has been something that has been a big strength of mine. And it came together. It was a very thought-provocative, I hope, panel.
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about, how do you go from, well, this is going to be the whole thing, but you started off as a social worker, right?
Yeah. I started off.
So from the social worker to the MBA, right? That's not everybody's normal path.
Yeah. It was interesting, man. I had some real guardian angels that kind of got me through it. But yeah, I finished playing ball at Virginia State in 2013, and I really didn't know what I was going to necessarily do next. And I had got an opportunity. I met a random lady in the Starbucks, and she happened to be the director of the PhD program at Howard University School of Social Work. And she gave me her card. And she said, "Well, you never told me what you was going to do once you finished at Virginia State, but here is, my card. And if you ever need anything." So fast forward, reach out to her. I get into the School of Social Work at Howard University. And then at the time, I didn't know I could be trained as a clinician. I didn't know that was something that, I was kind of naive, the regular CPS, kick your door down, take your kids type of, narrative.
Yeah.
And so while I was there, I let them know, like, I really wanted to learn how to become a clinician. And so I started getting training. Shout out to my man, Dr. Robert Evans, who was one of my very first clinical supervisors early on in my internship process. And man, I thought I was going to be working at the time, the new Jim Crow was hot. I was working with guys coming home from jail. I was working with guys incarcerated. So I thought that's what I was going to be doing. And I had a mentor, a guy named Dr. Jerry Brown, who is an anthropologist. And he was like, you should go and get your PhD. You're kind of a sharp brother. And so at the time, I was just like, I'm going to be a clinician. And I was training kids and I was coaching high school football at the time.
Which high school?
I was coaching at Coolidge, and at that time I was coaching
Coolidge
at Forestville. Yeah. So
hold on, whoa. When were you at Coolidge High School?
I was at Coolidge High School under Natalie Randolph in 2013, 14. Yeah.
So Natalie Randolph came. She was the first female high school coach in DC, right?
Yeah.
So I did my residency training. This is all unscripted. I did my residency training at Howard University in orthopedics. The school I covered, man, the school I covered was Coolidge High School.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So Jason, I can't remember his name, but Jason was the coach.
Jason Lane was
the coach.
Yeah.
So I graduated in 2012.
I just missed you.
Yeah. So
and Jason Lane,
Valentine, right?
I was there. He was at he went to Anacostia at that point.
Okay. And Danita Valentine was the athletic trainer?
I think, yes, I think so. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. So Coolidge High School, the Colts. Shout out to the Colts.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did that, and a mentor of mine was like, I think you should try to merge sport and, your clinical background and stuff. So I got my PhD from the University of South Carolina in sport and entertainment management, where I researched like different challenges athletes face with retirement and their playing experience and athletic identity. And I was the first Black graduate from that program. And so it was really cool going through that. And I was able to kind of merge. Most people that you see that are clinicians in the sports space don't understand sport business. And having my doctorate degree be in sport and entertainment management gave me a lot of understanding of how to intertwine my clinical skill set in the sport and entertainment business, which kind of makes me a unicorn. A lot of people go and just continue to get terminal degrees and just clinical tracks, which is cool. But, after I got my clinical training as a clinical social worker, it wasn't really, I didn't need to go get a PhD in social work per se, clinical psychology. So it all worked together. And that's how I got to this point, man. And you fast forward and I started working with all these different great organizations, which have just continued to further my career. And people are like, well, how's a social worker doing this? And I tell people that, I am not just, I'm not a regular social worker. So please do not try this at home because I have a very unique skill set. And I've been really blessed, man. I can't even lie, man. I've been the good fortune of being in the right place at the right time.
Absolutely. So did you come out and found your own wellness solutions and consulting right away, or did you start working in another field or hospital, or how that worked?
So, it was funny. I came back home because I thought I was going to be a tenure track professor like all of us at some point, we think, when we go through that process. And that wasn't necessarily in the cards for me. So I interviewed for a job with the Raiders and I didn't get it. But in the interim of me doing all of that, I had started working for the mayor. So when I came home after I finished my PhD, I worked with first responders. I was working with firefighters. I loved that work. I was working in an inpatient facility. And then after that, I had shifted to working for the mayor, where I was like leading a citywide trauma program that was really, really a different way to apply my skill set, because I was now looking at how to kind of help, impact macro level systems and things like that. So it was really interesting to kind of see how my skill set shifted to that. So after I finished that, I was kind of still stringing along how I was going to get into sport. I was still trying to look. So I started initially just really working with athletes, in private practice. And I was working for another private practice. It was kind of grim at one point, because I was like kind of down on myself. I was back home. I didn't think that, this was what I was going to be doing. Was it supposed to be something I was supposed to be doing? All of that. And during the pandemic, it gave us a lot of opportunity as practitioners to really, leverage what we possess as skills to help athletes, entertainers, organizations. And I was one of those, I say, pandemic consultant babies that was birthed out of the pandemic. And my first, interaction was with the Brooklyn Nets, where BSC Global, and we worked with the New York Liberty and things like that. And it was really good to support them. around different things, but it was employee facing. So that was really different. You know, it was kind of like everybody want to work with the athletes. But the beautiful thing that I was employee facing just gave me so much different type of exposure. I kept working with athletes in private practice, and not a lot. You know, any practitioner comes in and say, "Oh, well, my whole private practice is with athletes in line."
Right. Yeah.
You know that. You know.
I know how that works. Right.
If you have 80 clients, maybe 10 of them are athletes. And the reason why people can say that is because, you can never come and see who I'm really working with.
Right.
So
Can't check the books.
Right. You know, so at the time, I think I was just working with 10. I had only had like 2 former pro players, basketball players, but the rest were college or youth. But this was really like the first time when I got this opportunity in 2020 to work with the Brooklyn Nets. You know, that was the first time my mission and all of what I was visualizing over the years kind of came to fruition. And so, so out of that was Brad Kid Wellness Solutions and Consulting. And it's been a whirlwind, bro. I feel like since the pandemic, I've lived 20 different lives. But, you know, since then, we've been able to develop an imprint, man. I work with Universal Music Group, Warner Music Group. I've worked with member institutions at the NCAA, the NBA currently. I've worked with, man, a lot of good, you know, people and tech companies and things like that. And it's been a real big blessing to be able to do that at that level and at such a fast rate. You know, some people are like, dang, you did this, you know, pretty fast. But like I said, man, I think I caught lightning in the bottle and it was in the right place at the right time.
Absolutely. And that's a lot of it. You know, that's life, really.
Yeah.
One quote a lot of athletes say on here is you stay ready so you don't have to get ready, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, you could have pandemic coming and, okay, what's the world going to be? Well, you know, my career that I worked so hard, here it goes, you know, but you pivoted and now set up this platform. Let's talk about how your therapy sessions are all virtual. And that's really allowed you to be so many places at one time.
You know, I mean, the pandemic, once again, was something that, you know, kind of helped with, you know, kind of ushering, because before the pandemic, I was a practitioner that never saw myself doing anything virtual. And I said, I'll never do anything virtual. But when the pandemic happened, I mean, obviously we had to stay virtual. The virtual space allowed me to grab people that it made me more accessible. And so when I started my practice, I wanted to stay in the virtual imprint because the virtual imprint allowed me to, you know, really meet the client where they were at, but they can have accessibility to me. And it's just been beneficial, man. I mean, it's certain populations that you can't do, to me, that you can't do virtual. That's people that may be low functioning, autism, nonverbal. I think that's a space, very young children, I think it's really difficult to increase someone's executive functioning virtual. And there's other clients, potential clients that just don't want to be seen virtually and they need kind of textile, they need to touch, you know, but it's been really beneficial, man, to be able to provide clients with, you know, their own flexibility. You know, they could go off from a meeting and hop on, you know, and hey, you know, doc, I'm gonna hop on at 2 after my 1 o'clock meeting. I'm gonna hop on at lunch or whatever the case may be. So it's been really beneficial, I think.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. I mean, especially with gas prices and, you know, you don't have to travel across town and get stuck in traffic or whatever, you know, or be on vacation, still have your sessions. So that's awesome. And talk about, I mean, you went through a whole all-star list of clients that you're working with. And I'm sure they didn't just all show up on day one, knocking on the door. Hey, Victor Kidd, I hear that you offer services. Talk about how you kind of leverage your relationships to build those, or leverage connections to build those relationships with these companies.
The Sabre training bat is like no other training bat you've ever used before. So the purpose of the Sabre training bat with its modified barrel is so that you can perfectly sequence and get behind the ball, getting the bat on plane sooner, creating less miss hits, more line drives, higher batting averages, and more exit velocity. The Sabre training bat is the #1 training bat on the market. Sabre Bats, the training bat that's going to take you to your best swing.
think the biggest thing is one, be yourself. Like a lot of people say that, but I'm literally myself. I'm not doing any code switching or performative behavior. And I think people love that I'm very genuine and that I'm very passionate about what I do. I genuinely love what I do. A lot of people don't. They say they love what they do, but it may not come out in their behavior. I'm someone who generally gets excited about trainings, workshops, interacting with individuals, touching individuals in ways that, from a broad standpoint, in regards to getting a lot of this information that can be very jargony out so people can digest it and understand, how mental health and wellness really impacts them, all of the above. So the first, I think, how I leverage is people respect that I'm a very genuine person. And the next thing, when you do good work, people want to, expose you to other individuals who may appreciate your good work. So I've been able to kind of leverage my positionality and the work that I've done to other relationships by one, showing up and being my authentic self, which could be kind of cliche, but really, showing up and being genuine about who I am. And then the second thing is making sure that I do good work that lends to other individuals vouching for me and the work that I do with other organizations. And, for anybody aspiring to do this type of work is that you just, it's about relationship building. It's not about getting a consultant contract. It's about relationship building. And, as long as you relationship build in a healthy way, I think that will lead to more options.
I agree with that 100%. Talk to us about, diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's kind of a catch term that's being used more and more now, but really define for us what that means and what it entails.
Well, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging now, which has to be really included, is a really loaded term. And it means so many different things, but, diversity, I would say, means that, there is a presence of, different people from different backgrounds, right, in a space. Equity is equitable experiences to advance, right? And equity is really taking an assessment of individuals and who needs more to be on an even playing field with different counterparts, right? Equitable piece. Early in the pandemic, a meme was going around with like equity was like one person standing on this ladder.
Yeah.
And so equity is actually access in a lot of these spaces. How does these diverse groups have access to certain things? And then inclusion is really having your voice at the table and feeling like you are a part of through whatever type of mediums that may be occurring. And belonging facilitate all of those things, facilitate someone's belonging, someone feeling like they're invested in, the institution where they may work, the communities, things of that nature. So when you think about it, diversity is just presence, right? We're there. Equity is access, right? Inclusion is feeling like your voice has been heard and things have been applied that lead to more equitable opportunities, whether in whatever space, sport, entertainment, business, whatever case may be, and belonging. That is a genuine sense that this is where you're supposed to be and that the steps have been taken for you to feel like that within your professional space or wherever.
Yeah, I think those were some very clear cut definitions for some very vague terms, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. All right. And
it's always important. It's always important to operationalize them. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, no, I like that. And that's part of the work that you're doing with the NBA, correct?
It's some of the work that I'm doing. I'm doing a lot more mental health stuff now. A lot of my stuff is DEIB adjacent because now, when I very first started, my stuff was like racial trauma trainings and things like that. And now, I do a lot of that work in conjunction with mental health and wellness because I think they're so aligned. And when we think about cultivating healthier workplaces for individuals post-pandemic, the DEI work and also, mental health and wellness have to be kind of simultaneously, connected. So, I think I'm doing the work sometimes, planning is centered around DEI initiatives, and sometimes it's more core line to mental health and wellness. But we always talk about the differences and the variance of experience based on that, right? Culturally responsible, culturally comprehensive approaches to discussing some of these things is something that we strive for at Kid Wellness.
Absolutely. So who is an ideal patient for you? If, people are listening and they say, man, he's virtual, I think I want him to be my practitioner. So who are you looking for in your practice?
Ideal would be someone who is private pay because
Right.
I take insurance.
Yeah.
Someone that's really ideal is either, I do really well with black males, work really, it's really a beautiful thing coming out of the pandemic that I get a lot of calls to work with black males. So black males, athletes, first responders, C-suite, D-level executives, and entertainers. I really like the people that I really focus on. I really, what's a real driver for what I do, and I'm trying to find different iterations to support, is actually young black male adolescents to young emerging adults has been a space. And I think it's because I'm a former football player and former coach, and I'm able to, I'm 33, so I'm in that space where I'm not old enough to be their dad, but I'm not young enough to be their peer. I'm able to kind of empathize with them and still kind of, understand who Juice WRLD is or who all these other different characters are that they like. I'm still playing the video games, still in the sneakers and things like that. So I hold a real good, space right there where I'm a very palatable, therapist for that group. And so as I start to work with more entertainers and more artists and more other individuals, I've been trying to find different ways, whether it's a black male support group, things like that, or clinical group to support black males, young black males, as they navigate high school, going into college, and things like that. So yeah, man, black males, athletes, entertainers. I'm a trauma trained clinician, so first responders is always going to be near and dear to my heart. And like I said, C-suite level, D level executives, particularly black males. A lot of black males. I have a few black males that are in that space that are C-suite level leaders who need support in a whole bunch of different things, whether it's from just general wellness to performance, all those different things, considering other things, how to increase their ability to be better. So all those different things kind of go into it.
Absolutely. So yeah, I love the way you broke that down. And as we all know that mental health, especially just speaking from a cultural standpoint, the way we were raised many times as black males is to be strong, to be tough. And that means to not be vulnerable, right? And to many times hold in your feelings or be private about your feelings. But we really have to try to almost reverse, it's a curse, reverse that curse. And I think the work that you're doing is definitely leading down that path. So
Sweet.
That's great. Yeah. So TimeOut with the Sports Doctor, this is your final timeout. So we're just going to kind of continue on that path of breaking the curse. So speak to the difference between mental toughness, where you say mental toughness, I can, as an athlete, especially as an athlete, which is dangerous, I can push through injury, I can push through whatever. But many times when you're struggling, depression, addiction, alcoholism, or whatever, pushing through only makes that hole deeper or makes the addiction stronger. So speak to, kind of the mental toughness, but how it's really been vulnerable enough to connect with someone or discuss what you're hurting with.
It's funny. I'm close. Shout out to my man, Dr. Alex, out with the Toronto Raptors. I've grown close with him and follow a lot of his tweets, and we have some very strong conversations around performance and wellness, and I just really glean a lot from him in regards to that, because trying to navigate that dynamic as an athlete per se, or even an entertainer or a creative on pushing through, or occupational athlete like a first responder. I think the good balance is that we have to understand that when pushing through becomes dysfunctional or comes maladaptive to your general wellness or to your overall well-being, then it's problematic, right? I think there's a space for mental toughness, growth mindset versus fixed mindset, pushing through, being resilient. But a lot of times what we do is we mistaken all of that to allow ourselves to be open to abuse or to trauma, right? Or it traumatizes ourselves. So whenever the difference is, whenever mental toughness is no longer mental toughness when it is at the detriment of your well-being, right? Or is at the detriment of your emotional and mental regulation, right? When we experience dysregulation from trying to push through, right? Unhealthy coping mechanisms, unhealthy social behaviors, all those different things. So that's the biggest thing, the difference between it. You know, mental toughness in its healthiest sense is right, is going to shoot you through something that you may be experiencing, maybe some eustress, where you got a new task in your sport, or a new task at your job, or a new task with your craft, and this new challenge bring forth this mental toughness because you want to achieve that goal, right? Coming out of eustress. But when we're trying to use mental toughness when we're experiencing distress, which is most of the negative stressful anxiety or depression or whatever the case might be, dysfunction, right? It could work against us and not be of a benefit. So just kind of recognize that.
Yeah, thank you for that, because that's definitely something that we have to realize, that if you hold things in many times, you know, it can kill you. The stress can kill you. The addiction, the drugs, the depression can kill you. And the best way to combat that is by connecting with others, connecting with groups, connecting with a therapist, connecting with a pastor or family members, whoever you can trust or be vulnerable around, or accountability partners. You have to be connected with someone. Don't make yourself an island when you're struggling.
Right.
All right. Well, hey, thank you for sharing with us. Tell the audience how, you know, people can connect with you and how they can follow you on social media, etc.
Yeah, follow me on Twitter at The Real Dr. Kidd, THE Real Dr. Kidd, KIDD, that's 2 Ds. You can find me on LinkedIn, Victor Kidd. You can hit me up, 202-701-8922. You can also email me at vkidd@kwsconsulting.org, kwsconsulting.org. I got to spell that out because it's long. Look, they didn't have any other URLs when I was creating this.
I got you.
So you can have that information. If you ever need anything, please reach out. I look forward to hearing from you.
Absolutely. And we'll definitely include that all in the show notes.
Yeah,
hey, once again, I appreciate you and the work that you're doing.
My man.
Thank you for continuing to support this podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, then please leave a 5-star review. And if you haven't done so, subscribe so you continue to get the updated episodes. Until later, peace.
Hey, TimeOut with the SportsDr. Keep our head right in the game. We ain't never stopping. You are now tuned in. Trust you don't want to miss. This is where life, sports, and medicine